our children need to hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. Too scared to sing the anthem from a braver day, a song our children still need to hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
G'day there, Cobber.
How we doing?
How are you?
Good to go.
Here we are. Another Monday, mate. Nice bit of rain here in South Australia, copping a fair bit. Our reservoir is nearly, filling back up again to capacity. They drained it for quite a number of months ago, and it's really starting to fill back up now. I'm riding my bike around the reservoir and nice seeing the water creep up and all the wildlife and the birds, and it's quite nice.
Well, that's what you get with a super duper mega El Nino drought catastrophe looming, worst ever.
Yeah, that's right. Worst ever. That's it. Yeah, I know, right?
I am 4 inches ahead of average here. So
wow, crikey, so you've been getting it too.
Mil up. Yep.
Wow,
wet here.
Wow.
400 mil up.
Wow, that's not a bad effort. It's good to see. I mean, a bit of extra water is better than not enough, I guess.
Now, having said that, the fire authorities are doing what they always do at this time of year. They all come out and warn you about the coming season, and they've got 2 scripts, and they just flip between them. One script is, it's been really wet, there'll be lots of growth, there'll be fires. And the other script is, it's been really dry, it's going to be lots of fires.
I love it. Yeah, good work. I like it. That's funny as. That's funny. Well, it's good to see though, isn't it? Like it's good to see. Always something going on, isn't there? Yeah, I was going to share some. No, well, that's all right. Hedging a bet each way, I guess. Hedging a bet each way. That's all right. Well, haven't got much. We've got going to do a little bit, get into it, so then you can get onto yours. It's like we estimated maybe a couple of hours today, mate. What do you reckon? I don't know.
Normal show, feels like.
Normal show, nothing too extravagant. No, right.
Nothing too interesting.
No. All right. Well, there was something I just wanted to bring up quickly first. There's a couple of things actually I'm going to bring up. I'm flicking in between a couple of things here, but I'm going to share this. Right. Let's get the show on the road, brother, shall we?
Let's do it. This thing.
Let's do it. Let's do this thing. All right. Here, I just want to start off with this. You shared with me, and I wasn't really aware. I usually follow a fair bit of stuff because I'm not on Substack a lot these days, and we've been talking about getting you some more interviews with some like bigger platforms and stuff. And you shared me a link to a Substack article just recently, so I thought, I'll share this along and get this out there. So I actually took a picture of this, and I shared the link to the Substack, and it's actually getting quite a bit of traction. So this one here is actually on my X site, so it's getting a couple of views, but for some reason I can't bring up my Facebook at the moment. But my Facebook's really gone off, Bruce, and I think I must be on someone's radar because I've got a lot of bots and a lot of people that are friendly towards vaccines that really believe that our powers to be are great and amazing and saved our lives and is best for all. So I'm getting quite a bit of pushback on the Facebook, on the post that I put up on my page in the same article, and so it's actually drawn out a lot of people that are still feel the need to hammer everybody and put you into the cooker and the quack category and all that sort of stuff, Bruce. But it's really kicking off. It's got nearly 4,000 odd views, and that's on Facebook, and it's getting a bit of traction. Paul Osterhouse has shared it, but this is on my X, obviously. But I thought, I I'll share this anyway. So this is the article, and it's on Natural Selection Substack. Now, I haven't been sharing a lot of Substack because people know why, because I started doing this whole under 16 media ban, and I went across to my own platform from that. So, and don't share a lot, but this is COVID era stories on natural selections, and so I'll share that, and it's getting quite a bit of traction. So good on them. Hopefully it gets a few readership, and that's kind of basically you telling your story about the COVID era. Now, people that follow me and follow my blog site know that I've also did a little bit of a bio for you and our little journey, and so that article's there. It's good to see this one also getting a bit of traction about your story. So this is your story from you. So yeah, people want to check that out. If they do want to jump across to Substack and check that out, it is COVID Era Stories number 14 by Bruce Paix, 32 years a doctor, and I've been shared that, and it's quite happily getting a bit of traction, Bruce. So yeah. So Christine, I think everybody else has got sound. You don't maybe try refreshing, because I'm hoping that we're coming through. I haven't got any other comments saying that there is no sound. So just try refreshing there, Christine, and see if that works there for you. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that there for you, big fella, just to share it around, and hopefully you do get a bit more traction and you do get some bigger interviews and some bigger platforms. I know that Jim is pretty interested, so that's all right. Freedom Train. Yep. So we'll see what happens. You've sent him some details, so we'll see. We'll see.
And Natural Selections there, that's quite a big podcast, because that's Heather Hying's Substack. And
Okay.
Heather Hying is the other half of Brett Weinstein on the Dark Horse podcast, which is excellent. So yeah, a friend of the channel, Marcus in South Australia, dobbed me in for that one. So with a little bit of here we go. I did send them the piece, and they published it, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I know. Well, you don't like blowing your own trumpet, but like you've got to get the story out. You've been very badly treated over the last 5 years, and even though the attacks from those that still want to buy the narrative obviously continue to come 6 years later, when all the evidence, all this other counter evidence is coming out, but they still want to stick to the script. But so there you go. But anyway, Bruce, I've been burning the candle at both ends. I actually haven't uploaded an article. I've got 2 articles on the go, which I haven't had a chance to upload, because a friend of mine here in South Australia by the name of Chris, if you happen to be watching Chris, he sent me a link to an ABC segment that aired it's on ABC iView, but it aired, and the reporter actually wrote about it as well. And it's about an 8-minute clip, and it's about the ABC literally defending Fauci and ridiculing everybody that's actually trying to hold him responsible in the congressional hearings. And he sent it to me, and it got me in this big deep dive. I started to unpack it, and I started putting this a PowerPoint talk together on it. So I've turned 8 minutes into about 25 minutes, and I'm ready to upload it. It'll be live by tomorrow on all my platforms, but I'm just going to give you a real quick teaser of you listen to the ABC intro here, and you tell me yourself if this is very loaded from the very beginning. But this is only a very small portion, so I'm just going to play this now. Hopefully the sound comes through okay. Yep, I've got the speakers on. Let me know if it doesn't, but I'm going to play this here for you now.
Of how a contested history was reported.
Anthony Fauci, with contempt of Congress, risks further damage to a US public health system that's been infected by vaccine skepticism and distrust, say experts. The 85-year-old faces jail time if convicted, a humiliating act of revenge against one of America's most respected medical figures, from opponents who blame him for COVID lockdowns. Adam Harvey reports.
Listen carefully to the opening. Before the substantive dispute is explained, vaccine skepticism and distrust are framed as part of what has infected the public health system. Congressional action is then described as a humiliating act of revenge against one of America's most respected medical figures. Those are not neutral descriptors. They establish a moral frame before viewers have heard the case for or against Fauci. The question for this audit is not whether Fauci deserves respect. It is whether the rest of the report seriously tests the frame established in its first 30 seconds.
So there you go. That is a really quick teaser there for you guys. That's actually going to go live tomorrow. So this is it. Did the ABC's Fauci report meet its own standards? So Bruce, I turned 8 minutes into 25 minutes unpacking that. So there you go. That's coming tomorrow, my friend. So anyway, good on the APC. It's been.
Let me just comment on that, because you haven't seen that yet. You said it's not out yet, but there are a couple of classic false arguments used there. First off, they said that Fauci was one of the most respected doctors. Okay, well, that's called an appeal to authority. We should believe him because, everybody else does. He's highly respectable. No. He's been criticised for what he said and did, not for his respect or his reputation or any of that. And I would argue that he shat in that nest during COVID. And the second thing is to frame it in those loaded terms is what's called a pre-bunk. You've heard of debunking things. We can pre-bunk things too. So before the ABC even tells us, which they won't, even tells us the two sides of the argument, they're telling us that one set of arguers are cookers. Pre-bunk. Anyway, that's our ABC, which, as you know, you and I pay for, and they arose, I think, in the 30s as Australia's most trusted voice in the media, and their job was to be an unbiased reporter of the news. That's gone Australia a bit, hasn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you, my friend. You've just turned 25 minutes into 30 seconds, and you've just, I may as well not upload it now because you've just so eloquently explained it. But you know what? What you just say there, I actually fully unpack in that whole 25 minutes. So, you can give me a little, next week maybe you can turn that 25 minutes into an hour and unpack mine and add to it.
I've just pre-bunked the ABC there, and us writers, we're well used to writing these excellent and lengthy pieces and then having the editors go snip, 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 and there's only 10% left. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, exactly right. But anyway, it is what it is. No, good on you. So that'll go live, but I only just finished it. It's actually taken me longer. My friend, though, when he sent it through, he just wanted a little bit of an explainer about how the ABC is so loaded and it's biased and it's all this sort of stuff, and I actually go into the standards, their standards and all that sort of stuff. So and I do cover the AIDS bit as well. They do cover the AIDS bit, and I unpack a little bit of that as well. So there is quite a bit in it. So I ended up going way beyond what my friend initially had in mind for me to look at. But anyway, there you go. I went a bit overkill. So
now, if I remember, yes, I was aware that Fauci was involved in the AIDS story. That was another disease that was diagnosed by testing. And you went on long-term treatment, because you tested positive for HIV. Yes, that's right, isn't it? And if I remember correctly, and this is only my memory, they used remdesivir as an antiviral during the AIDS epidemic and decided it was too toxic, so they stopped using it. So, the approved drug that they rolled out to treat people for COVID, that illness with, a 0.5% death rate, if you believe it. They used a drug that had previously been deemed too dangerous to use to treat AIDS.
Remdesivir.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, funny about that. But anyway, so that's me. I just burning the candle at both ends. But we get there. It was worth. To be honest, it cost me way too much time because I was still learning the editing software with all that, and it was just cutting and chopping. But I would love to do some more of those as time permits, because I'd love to get these pieces where the ABC is just so so leaning into their own narrative that they do really need people, multiple people calling them out for their BS bias. So, but anyway, we'll keep doing what we're doing, brother.
And it just shows you that the mainstream media is the mouthpiece of the person who pays them. I've often said you work for the person who pays you. We know that the commercial television take a lot of advertising, so they're vulnerable to saying the wrong thing. The ABC's not supposed to be vulnerable. They're supposed to be independent, fearless, except they're paid by the government. All their money comes from the government, which means that they don't dare say anything against the government. And of course, the government was bought and paid for by the big drug companies, same as the commercial media was. It's the same platform.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. But anyway, so there you go. That is the extent of my little bit, because I've been a bit busy and I've just been, I couldn't bring a lot. But there you go. That's what I've been working on. So stay tuned. So what do you reckon, brother? Over to you. Let's do this. Look at you. There's your slide.
There we are. So what are we up to? 122. 122. Yeah, so just keep rolling off.
Yeah, we're starting to get a bit thin on material, I guess. It is, at some stage it'll peter out that we'll have nothing to talk about, won't it, Bruce?
Every week I struggle, and I think, how am I going to get up to the hour? I didn't cut anything this week, but quite often I do cut things because I think, no, it's just going to go too long.
It's going to go too long. Yeah, no, fair enough.
All right. Remember when we started, we said, around an hour?
Yeah.
Did we ever?
We've
been that low ever?
I don't, for a long time. I'd have to look back and see when we actually started like blowing out the 1 hour. But remember, we were only going to do 26 episodes too. 26 was the pilot. 26 was the pilot. So, but people, we'll let people tell us when they want us to give it up and hang up our podcasting boots, Bruce. Right?
Tell us it's time.
Tell us it's time. There we go.
All right. Okay, so what do we got this week? There's the contents list. Updates on the Gulf War and the bird flu, both disasters rushing at us like steam trains, apparently. Bad news in money and finance, because Australia's debt has now reached the highest level ever. It's reached the magic $1 trillion. And that's government debt. That's debt run up on yours and my behalf by our wise rulers, buying transgender crossings and windmills and Pfizer products.
Worse, Bruce, worse. You and I are like 50s, 60s. It's our kids and grandkids, mate. It's our grandkids. You've just become a granddad. Maybe for the second time. They're racking up this debt, and it's actually going to impact them. They're going to have their wealth stripped off them. They do everything they're doing to strip wealth off you while we continue, and them. That's who it's affecting. Also
known as the late extractive phase of a dying empire. That's what we're in.
Yep.
Right, we got a bit of diversity divides. John Cleese gets a run at the moment. John Cleese was that gangly, tall, spider-limbed man from Monty Python, and also excellent in Fawlty Towers. He's come out talking about the changes in the culture in Britain and saying that he opposes it, and making the distinction that we've made, which is that culture and race are not the same thing. Race is the hardware, culture is the software. Now, flowing on from that, the West and Australia seem hell-bent on this cultural dilution by importing massive numbers of culturally incompatible immigrants, not just here, the UK, Canada, etc., despite the obvious problems that have occurred. We've seen the ritual barbecues in France, we've seen riots, we've seen honour killings, we've seen beheadings, throughout the Western world. So I examine the question of, why are our wise rulers doing this? They're deliberately ruining the country, but why? And the answer is, we have to import citizens because we can't make our own anymore. And we can't make our own anymore because the government has now grown so large and parasitic that the ordinary citizen can't afford it anymore. So we're going to look at that. But fear not, people like you and I who might express concerns about the cultural changes happening in our country, if you go to the AIs and just type into Google's, and in fact, a friend of the channel sent me a number of these where they typed in, I'm alone with a white man, and the Google response. I'm alone with a black man, and the Google response. I'm alone with a Muslim, and the Google response. I'm alone with a Christian, and I'll show you those because there certainly does seem to be a concerted effort to slant those thoughts in one direction rather than the other. Government overreach. Following on from the Iran war fallout, one of the obvious things that's come of it is that we are experiencing what's called a generational change in warfare. And it's said in the military that the army always gears up to fight the last war. The problem is that this war is very different from the last war, which is why asymmetric actors like Iran are proving very successful using new and different strategies, things like drones, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to ask the question, should we continue gearing up to refight the last war? And by the way, Australia hasn't won a war since America did, actually. Vietnam War was lost. Korean War was a draw in the 53. Vietnam War was lost. Gulf War won. Well, that was a raid and they went home. The Iraq invasion was lost. The Afghan invasion was lost. And America and Australia took part in all of those conflicts. So we haven't won a war in 50 years, and we're still gearing up to fight those wars all over again, despite the fact that we haven't won those wars because they changed. The nature of the war changed, asymmetric conflicts. So one question...
People still get rich.
Well, that's the point. Why are we spending billions of dollars on niche, high-end hardware, in a handful, 8 submarines, 100 aircraft? Why are we doing that when it looks like the best way to defend your country is to have 10,000 cheap drones? Why are we still going?
100%.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Makes sense. Just makes a ton of sense.
Finish it. Well, obviously, I have no background for saying that, and I just hate the country, and I'm a defeatist, obviously.
Naturally, of course. Crawl back in your hole.
Now, to finish, one Muslim bird, and in this recent story says that rising CO2 levels in the atmosphere, currently I think it's up to 430, 435, are reaching a dangerous tipping point where they're starting to cause changes in blood chemistry, which could mean that our air is too toxic to breathe within 40, 50 years. Now, Joe Nova, on the excellent Joe Nova blog, actually commented on this and said, well, why are we worried about 430, 450 parts per million in the atmosphere when a modern building's probably 10 times that because of hermetically sealed and poor ventilation? When a bedroom that's poorly ventilated is 3,000 parts per million at night. And, of course, under the masks that we force kids into, over 5,000. In anaesthesia, one of the things we used to measure was the exhaled CO2 in patients, breath to breath. And I put a little probe underneath the mask and just measured the CO2 underneath my COVID mask, and I got numbers over 5,000. So why was it okay to force that on everybody when we should be getting scared at 430, 450, 480? How come we weren't scared to force children to have 5,000?
Well, because there was an agenda behind it, Bruce. It was, for the greater good of their overall plan, Bruce.
Yes, it wasn't about health. It was about something else. That's why it was okay.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
actually, before you get on, I just wanted to quickly share this. Michael just shared this. Now, hopefully it does happen, but apparently instead of the Clo quiz show, apparently he's got Reiner coming on. So this will be really, really good. Yeah, so that'll be worthwhile hanging around for and watching. As people probably remember, Reiner was very early on. He had the Corona Investigative Committee, and they've ended up locking him up and putting him away in jail in Germany, I reckon under fabricated pretense. Now, he's a lawyer that absolutely, had some of the biggest law cases in Germany against some of the big corporations, and he was calling out the Corona BS for ages. So hopefully, Michael, that'll go ahead. He's saying it's maybe on there, so hopefully the signal and it'll get through. So that would would be good to see. Hopefully you can get that, make that happen, Michael. That'd be good.
Last I heard, he was still in jail, so I'm not sure how they'll do that.
Yeah, no, that's what I heard as well. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. Maybe
I
he can
think
do it via phone. He's allowed
I think
phone
he did-
calls, I think.
Yeah, I think his crime was the same as mine. I think he called out the fact that he was set up by the police.
Mm. Yeah, funny about that, isn't it? There's a bit of that going on.
Yeah. All right, let's kick into it. So start off with the updates, and this is the Gulf War update. And this week we've seen a sign that the US might finally be admitting that they can't bomb the Strait of Hormuz open. And so they've instead announced a strategy pivot, and the pivot is in the direction of economic warfare. Here's what the Treasury Secretary, like the minister in charge of the Treasury, said. It's a 1-2 punch. We have the blockade and we're going to have the toughest sanctions in history. And I tell you, this will work. It worked in Venezuela once we put up the blockade. It is working in Cuba right now, and it's going to work in Iran. We're going to collapse this regime, Besant said.
Flatten the curve.
Now,
2 weeks.
look, I think they need to change strategy because what they're doing doesn't work. But I think this new strategy is worse. And I've identified a few wrinkles with this new strategy. First off, you notice that Secretary Besant said it is working in Cuba right now, blockading Cuba. Okay, well, let's just have a look at that. That's Cuba. Cuba is a small, poor island, less than 150 kilometres from the United States. It's an island, so it's easy to blockade. The US is right next door, so they don't need a lot of resources to keep it blockaded. And in fact, the United States has been blockading Cuba for 65 years now. They started when the Communist Revolution came along, and they still do it. Now, no doubt Cuba has suffered severely. The pictures we see show that all the cars running the streets are 1950s Chevys, and the Cubans make parts as needed when they break. And the whole place looks very dilapidated and poor. So the economic effects of the blockade of Cuba have been severe, and it's the man in the street that suffered. And it's always the man in the street that suffers from sanctions. It's not the ruling class. And remember, what they're trying to do in Iran is to get rid of the regime, get rid of the leaders. Well, they blockaded Cuba since 1959 when the Communist Revolution happened and Fidel Castro came to power. Now, Fidel Castro ruled for another 49 years until he died. And when he died, he had an estimated fortune of $1 billion. And guess who replaced him? His brother.
Of course.
So it took him 50 years to replace one Castro with another Castro, and 65 years on, Cuba, it's working in Cuba. Cuba still has a communist regime. So I don't know if we've got 65 years to wait for regime change in Iran, given that it's going to take longer than that in Cuba, and Cuba's a dead easy blockade.
Yeah, when you compare it to the Strait of Hormuz, and very, very different up there, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's right next door to the US. It's dead
much
easy.
bigger. That's right.
Yep.
Much bigger landmass too, though, Iran.
Oh, yeah. And very difficult country too. And 93 million people.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the next wrinkle. The next wrinkle is that Iran's largest trading partner, China, has said they're not going to comply with US sanctions. China is not only the biggest trading partner of Iran, but China also takes most of the Iranian oil exports. So I have a feeling that the Chinese might actually say, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. So that's going to be a problem. If the US thinks they can blockade Iran even harder, at some point China's going to say, yeah, no, we need the oil. And let me just play a little vid there of what the Chinese spokesman said.
You got it?
So that's that one.
制裁施压无助于问题的解决，中方呼吁相关各方 采取负责任举措，通过政治外交途径解决问题。中方反对没有国际法依据、未经联合国安理会授权的非法单边制裁，呼吁相关各方采取负责任举措，通过政治外交途径解决问题。
Diplomatic channels, eh? And I hear that with stuff going over between Russia and Ukraine, and that Russia, that China and others are still very cozy with Russia and support of them, with any escalations from NATO as well.
Yeah, well, of course, because Russia is fighting NATO / the Americans. America is part of NATO. And historically, China and Russia have been on the other side of those military blocs. So it suits China very well to see the US getting weakened and bleeding large numbers of very expensive weapons in both places while they just sit back and watch. So, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Righto. So I mentioned two problems with this new economic warfare strategy of the US. First one being that it hasn't worked in 65 years in Cuba. And also that it doesn't cause regime change. Sanctions cause enormous pain to the local citizens, but the ruling powers stay ruling. Second one I said is, okay, well, China's not going to accept a sanction or blockade because they need the oil. So you got that. Here's the third wrinkle with the new US strategy. So the US strategy is pivoted from one where they had superior combat power, and they couldn't achieve it with all of their high-end weaponry and bombing. Now they've pivoted to an economic warfare strategy, which unfortunately they do not have the upper hand in. Iran has a much stronger hand in terms of economic damage. And Iran can extend that not only to the US, but to the entire world. And they have been doing that. So Iran can leverage not only the US, but all of the US allies. Every other country in the world can put pressure on the US because every other country in the world has far more to lose from an economic blockade than Iran does. Iran's been sanctioned by the US for more than 40 years. They still haven't got regime change. They've just bombed it extensively. They still haven't got regime change. And Iran has shown they hold the cards in an economic war and they can take the pain. Here's the fourth problem with the US switch to an economic pain strategy. Iran hasn't got much left to lose. They've been sanctioned for decades already. If we believe the US, their Navy's been destroyed, their Air Force has been destroyed, their bridges, everything's been destroyed. Right? So if we believe that, what have they still got to lose? Are the Americans going to bomb all the downed bridges again? Are they going to destroy the Army or the Navy again? Are they going to destroy the Air Force again? So more of, the Iranians have shown that they can withstand that. And I think they can withstand economic pain as well. So I think the US has got far more to lose here. And I think there's very little pressure that can be put on the Iranians by this switch to an economic strategy because their economy is pretty poor already in contrast to the rest of the world. All right.
Yep.
Now, the rest of the world, however, still seems to be completely ignoring the freight train of economic consequences that are coming their way. We've got massive deficits in oil and fertilizer stocks already. And even if the Gulf opened immediately, you can't make up 6 or 8 months of deficit. That's production that did not happen. In terms of fertilizer, you've had growing seasons where less fertilizer could be put on the ground, less diesel to run the machinery, etc., etc. So those things can't be undone. And I've got there the state of onshore fuel supplies in Australia. Not much change, but still, of all our 3 main transport fuels, we got less than a month's worth of in-country stock. So if the stocks stop coming, and I make the point that a lot of refined products come into Australia have been originally sourced in the Gulf. They come from the Gulf They go across the Indian Ocean up into the Asian refineries, Singapore, China, etc., and then they come here. So if that stops, we got a month worth of what we need, and it's been like a month for months. So we are still coasting along with almost no buffer and almost no consequences. You know, the price of fuel, diesel's up around $2.50, went over $3 early on, and before all this started, it was in the $1.80 range. So it's gone up a bit, but not hugely. So Gulf War still grumbles on. The Americans, despite the fact that they've won it 59 times already, are changing strategy so they can win it even more. And I don't think anything's going to change. I think things are just going to slowly get worse as we draw through all the stocks. The reason we've still got oil stocks despite the deficit is that most countries have significant onshore oil and product stores. You know, China reportedly has got over a year's worth of petroleum stored, and they've got the ability to refine it. The US had some months of storage, and depending on the figures you read, they've probably blown through about 3/4 of it. So they can't keep pretending there's no problem for much longer. Can't keep.
Yeah. Yep. And this comment from Christine, I agreed with that a little bit, is that, I feel sorry for the Iranian people. It's always the innocent people, you know, the people with the cannon fodder and that, with regimes and regime change. When I went to Sydney a few times, a lot of the drivers are from Iran that I've got into cabs with, and just you have a chat with them. A lot of decent people brought their family over to create a better life, but just chatting to them, saying that, you know, the regime before the current one, they're saying wasn't perfect, but it was far better. But they do honestly say that their country has massively changed under this new regime, and bringing their families over for a better life. So, you know, and they're the good, decent. These are good, decent dads that just wanted the best for their kids and their wife and themselves and all that sort of stuff. So, look, those stories are real. Those stories are absolutely real. But yeah, I mean, how far do you go though by bloody getting involved in these things from other countries like they always do? And it costs the world when they do these things. America gets involved, and the runoff affects everybody in the world. And this is what happens, isn't it?
Yeah, and regime change at American hands never works either. Always ends up as a complete catastrophe, a country in ruins, and a worse regime after they're gone.
Yeah.
And I make the point, everything we know about Iran comes from two sources. One is what our own governments and media tell us. Do we trust them? I don't trust them as much as perhaps I once did. And the second source of information are these Iranian expats. Now, remember, Iranian expats left the country because they were unhappy. So they're not a representative sample of the entire population. And many of them left it decades ago. So again, I listen to a lot of the alternative media. One of the great voices out of Iran is Professor Marandi, Syed Mohammed Marandi from University of Tehran, who gets extensively interviewed in the alternate media. He's a voice of reason, he's eloquent, he speaks well, and he doesn't agree that Iranian is a despotic tyranny. In fact, he thinks America is a despotic tyranny, and I think he's got reason for that.
Yep. Interesting comment there, and I haven't looked into it too much about the Shia and Muslim. So Iran is Shia Muslim, and Muslim Brotherhood is Sunni apparently. So I think there must still be some tribal stuff going on there, though.
The great schism in Islam happened very early on. It was between the Sunnis and the Shia. The Shia are mainly the Iranians and the southern Iraqis. The Sunnis were most of the rest of the Gulf, and read some figures recently that said 98% of terror attacks are by Sunni factions, not by Shia factions. So the Shia faction appears to be more peaceful and more modern than the Sunnis. So examples of the Sunnis: Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, the old ruling Ba'ath Party in Iraq. So it seems to me that the the more totalitarian branch of Islam is definitely Sunni, and the Iranians are Shia. The Iranians are Shia.
And I've heard similar with Africa, like African nations, and there the conflict obviously between the Sunni and Shia is the same as the Sunni are the more the violent ones. That
that appears to be. Now the other thing to mention, of course, is that the Iranians are not Arabs. Most of the countries around them are Arabs. Qatar, UAE, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they're Arabs. The Iranians are not Arabs. They're what's called Aryans. So they're related to the Germanic peoples of Middle Europe. And in fact, as a general principle, the Iranians appear to be more technical, more modern than the Arabs, and particularly Sunni Arabs. So I don't buy into the Iranian regime is terrible. It's our job to go and get rid of it, because I don't know if that's true. And even if it is true, it's not our job to go and get rid of it. Like I say, the Iranians would probably like to go and get rid of President Trump, and they'd be justified.
And the people that come before him, there's a lot more people, just as bad, if not worse, people before him. That's right, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, we've digressed. Let's we'll get back to the. Oh, where'd you go?
I think we both added at the same time.
Yeah, it looks
so that's the first update. That was the Gulf War update. Here's the next update, the bird flu update. And now I know that it's getting serious. And I know that it's getting serious because the scary red graphs have arrived.
Oh, of course. Yeah, makes all the difference, right?
Now, notice that the epicenter of the epidemic appears to be your state of South Australia, Mark.
Yeah, of course. Yep. Oh,
now,
lots of things like that happen here. Don't worry about that. There's a lot of stuff that happens over here. We know. Don't you know that the Labor government here has had a good rap from the WEF and the COP movement and all these sort of people. South Australia's only a small population, but geez, they punch above their weight in regards to
tyranny,
government overreach, tyranny.
So I think we should all get ready for the return of the tense daily official briefings to keep us up to date with the coming catastrophe, don't you?
Oh, yeah, of course. No, I missed them, actually. Have you missed them, all those daily updates?
And I want some sort of counter, the numbers across the bottom, seals, penguins, birds, chickens, with like a number that just keeps clicking over as more and more die. I want that. Now, South Australia is on the front line because we had this story during the week that said 1,000 seabirds had apparently been killed from bird flu on 3 remote offshore islands in South Australia.
Remote.
Oh. Now, mind you, if we believe the story, which is that migrating seabirds flying north from Antarctica, there is no part of South Australia that is remote in comparison to the flight to get to it from Antarctica. Anyway, the current story is, oh no, we've got 1,000 dead seabirds due to bird flu. Now, my question is, how do we know it was bird flu? Were they all tested somehow? And if they were tested, did they use that fraudulent and easily manipulated thing called the PCR test?
Oh, I can't say that, Bruce. That would be cooker territory there, mate. Saying that they were amped up to too many cycles and it showed false positives. That's Cookipedia stuff, Bruce. Come on.
Well, I in fact wrote to my federal MP during the week and asked them exactly that. Can they let me know whether all of these diagnoses are being done through PCR testing, and if they are, what is the number of cycles that we're running it to? And my local MP's a national who's actually pretty good. And I don't say that about many politicians. So I would expect a reasonable answer to that at some point.
Yeah, so what do you think? Without all the correspondence you've sent, Bruce, do you think you'll get much back, brother?
Well, I didn't. Oh, hang on. I did email it, come to think of it. Okay, that might be where I've made a bit of a brouhaha.
Express post, mate. Get it. What did they call it? Sign on delivery and received. Yep, that's the way to do it.
You're not allowed to say I'm keeping receipts. That makes them all a bit edgy. And you might get a visit from the police saying you've been emailing politicians.
Oh yeah, we don't want that again, Bruce. You've been down that way, and hopefully you've got lots more cameras around your property now because of the, you're used to getting stitched up there, brother.
Cameras, claymores, sort of man traps, rotating knife. That's all a joke, ASIO. Right? Just checking whether you're listening at ASIO or whether you've gone out for a cup of latte.
Yeah.
All right. So as a result of this building to a crescendo bird flu catastrophe that's rushing at us, the experts are now calling for hundreds of millions of dollars to deal with it. So to read the contents, the Invasive Species Council, whatever that is, has previously called for a $200 million funding package over the next 2 years to equip regional communities to deal with bird flu. They said there is a tsunami of devastation about to break over Australia's unique wildlife. Governments haven't scaled up their efforts in response to that, and that's a real problem. So the experts want more money for some reason.
Yep.
Okay, let's ask.
So do the vaccine companies, don't they? We've talked about this before with Elizabeth Hart, with her research. It says much bigger money in bloody animal vaccines than human vaccines, isn't there?
Oh, it's at least 10x bigger market.
Yeah.
All right. So if we're going to be ramping up the response, I ask myself, what sort of response might we get apart from, throwing money, which of course is a perfectly reasonable reason to have a response. Doesn't mean it has to achieve anything, but if you're on the receiving end of the money, then that's what we call a success in warfare. All right. So to answer, okay, what might the response be? We need to review what bird flu allegedly is and how it allegedly spreads. So this is what the experts tell us, and I'm referring to the graphic on the left. So you've got this wild bird vector, you've got the seabird there, which is flying in from Antarctica, transiting north over Australia to somewhere else. As it passes over Australia, it either takes a drink in one of the local ponds or takes a dump in one of the local ponds or lands there and starts carousing with one of the local ducks, which allows that virus. Please don't email me about whether viruses exist or not. As I've said before, I have serious doubts about the science of virology, but if nothing else, I think the model of there being an infectious particle is a good one and a useful one. So that virus gets out of that migratory bird and gets into the local animals in Australia, whether they're seals or kangaroos or penguins or chickens, okay? Now, from that, there's a potential that it will spill over into companion animals like cats and also into food animals like cattle. And finally, the end of that chain is that there's a risk to humans. So there's a whole lot of interspecies transfers have to happen there. And by the way, as I mentioned last week, I'm deeply suspicious of any model that says you can transfer a virus that's well adapted into one bird. And we know it's well adapted into these the wild birds, because if it was making them seriously sick, they wouldn't have got here from Antarctica. They'd have dropped dead well before reaching us after flying thousands of kilometres, okay? So you've got a virus that is well adapted to its natural reservoir, which then transfers into unnatural reservoirs in Australia. And as mentioned last week, that's really difficult. For a virus to succeed, it has to get out of the wild bird, it has to get into the new host, it has to get into the circulation of the new host, so it has to get past the respiratory defences, it has to get into the blood, it has to spread around, and then it has to get inside the cell, which requires a specific receptor. Cells are designed to keep stuff out that's not meant to be in them. So the way viruses get into cells is they have to attach to a specific receptor on the cell to get in. And those specific receptors are different in different species, and they're particularly different in very different species. You know, maybe I could believe that the wild duck, albatross, could spread it into a wild grebe or duck in Australia. But to tell me it can get into a seal, which is a very different bird, I'm deeply suspicious of that. And then it's got to spread to a chicken, and then it's got to spread to a cow or something, and then it's got to spread to a human. At every stage, it's got to make that incredibly difficult interspecies jump. So I'm deeply suspicious, but this is the plan. This is what they're going to sell us. Okay. All right. So here's why I don't think that'll work. Number one, we already know that there's a natural reservoir here. We can never stop bird flu coming to Australia because it's imported every year naturally by seabirds that are flying over with it. So you can never get rid of it. Same as COVID, you could never get rid of it because it wasn't a sterilising vaccine. Well, in this case, you just keep reseeding it. So it's never going to go away. This is going to be a problem going forward into the future, which means instead of trying to manage it, we should let it rip, and then all the surviving animals have got natural immunity. We should have done the same thing with COVID, by the way. Next problem I've got why I think that the control measures will fail is that this is the literal example of airborne spread of a virus. And you might remember Ted Steele saying that viruses could travel intercontinentally in the jet streams. This is a virus traveling intercontinentally in a bird.
That's right. Wow.
What is the size of the exclusion zone that you need to set up to stop that form of airborne transmission? Absolutely nuts. Can't be done.
Exactly.
We tried it during COVID. Utter failure. And you know, we're going to keep birds 2 meters apart, or 2.5 kangaroos, or 1 elk, or whatever it is. We're going to put masks on them. Control measures cannot possibly work, and I'm deeply suspicious.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so, and then you got old Billy Gates exploring, you know, mosquitoes and all that sort of stuff with, you know, they can inject us all with mRNA and all that sort of stuff. So
it's for our safety, mate.
It's for the greater good, of course. It's for the greater good. What about the one? The story about that cruise ship was always very interesting, and Ted talks about that a lot. Is the cruise ship that was out in the middle of nowhere, and I think only a third of the people, or 2/3 of the people, got sick. The rest didn't, and it was, you know, there was no. Yeah, it was just really strange, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, he does believe in this whole jet stream and viruses floating around in up there and all that.
Yeah, and refer anyone who hasn't seen Ted Steele's work, do a little bit of a search on the Googles, get past the 10 pages of Professor Steele is a dangerous cooker, and then look at some of the things he's actually said. Anyway, we're discussing the whole picture they're painting us for bird flu. And now let's discuss, okay, how are they going to deal with this? Because they want to spend $200 million dealing with it. So this story from the RSPCA says that the spread of bird flu is inevitable. Now, I think they got that bit right for all the reasons we've just mentioned. You can't stop this thing with 2 feet distancing and masking. Can't be done, okay? So I predict what they'll do instead is they'll angle towards a mass vax campaign, because this is what they did during COVID. They weren't really trying to stop it spreading. They were trying to lock you down to force you to get vaxxed. Remember that? What victory looked like during COVID was multiple jabs in every arm. Didn't look like the population travelling safely through to the other side with minimal health load. Okay. So the RSPCA is right. You can't stop this thing spreading. All birds, all animals will be exposed to it at some point. So I think what they'll do is they'll say, well, we have to get everything vaxxed. It's got to be a vax campaign. Okay. And we've started to see that already with the little penguins and so forth. So they're already hopping on that. Okay, got to do something. We'll start vaccinating. Okay. So I think that's what they're going to do. And they're going to extend it. So it's not just going to be the little penguins. It's going to be every chicken in your chicken shed. Maybe they'll extend it to cattle. Maybe they'll even extend it to humans. Oh, bird flu, very dangerous. You better get your bird flu shot. Now, interestingly, I did note that South Australia has now reported 2 cases in seals, 2 dead seals found in South Australia which have died from bird flu. Again, is this PCR bird flu or real bird flu? We'll see. But that's the current story. And so they're just going to keep amping it up. We've got to start vaccinating everybody.
I wonder how far up their noses they share. they push these things.
I'll give you a pro tip. You probably can't do a PCR test on a sea lion unless it's dead.
You're good luck with that, hey?
So you can probe it wherever you like, just like the aliens. And I did notice when they said, oh, no, it's now spread to mammals, that being the seals, the SA government spokesman was asked about vaccinating the seals. And one of the things they said is, well, we don't know. There's an experimental product from America. We don't know if it's effective and we don't know if it's safe. So we don't know if that's on the table yet. To which I screamed at the television, okay, now do that for COVID vaccines in 2020. Well, it's experimental. We don't know if it'll work. We've got to balance the pros. No, get vaxxed was the answer in 2020, wasn't it? Okay.
Yep.
Now,
follow the same script. Follow the same script. Everybody follows the script.
No, it's good to see. If you see the bit in bold, pet owners been asked to take precautionary measures to keep furry friends, pet birds and home chooks safe. Good to see that the furries are now going mainstream. Pleased to see that. Diversity and all that.
Yeah, diversity is strength.
All right. So here's why I don't think a vax campaign can stop bird flu. As mentioned, you've got a natural reservoir. This thing, if it's real, is just going to get seeded in for the next few months, and every year it's just going to repeat. It's the definition of airborne spread, so you can't lock the population down. And you'll notice from the shots, they're choosing injected vaccines. You see how they're injecting the little fairy penguins?
Yeah.
Now, we know as a general rule that you need to create immunity in the compartment by which the natural infection arrives. So in the case of respiratory viruses, you need to create immunity in the respiratory compartment, what Ted Steele calls the mucosal compartment, which means you have to administer the vaccine into that compartment. If you bypass it and inject it into the meat of the bird's immune system says, oh, I'm being attacked by a virus that comes in via the blood, and the immune response is different. So the defenses are not at the lung barrier, the defenses are in the blood barrier. So we saw this during COVID. What that means is you cannot have what's called a sterilising vaccine. Even if the vaccine works, it cannot work until the virus has colonised the respiratory tract and escaped into the interior of the bird, which means even if you stop it getting into the interior and stop the bird getting sick, it's still got a lung full of bird flu, which means it's going to be spreading. So you can't get rid of this disease. And my final concern there, as we've discussed in the past, influenza vaccines typically have poor levels of effectiveness, sometimes negative. For example, the Cleveland study where they looked at 50,000 healthcare workers and they looked at the flu rates in the part of the workforce that took the shot and the part that didn't, they had a 27% higher influenza rate in the workers who took the flu vax. So in most years, the flu shot is poorly effective. In some years, it's negatively effective. So I don't see any evidence that all of this injecting little penguins is going to do anything except maybe make them sicker.
Yep, and that's what people are worried about. You know, where's all the animal rights activists and lobbyists? Because they're just all conned and saying, "Oh no, it's for the greater good of the penguins and everything else." And so if we've got to do this, you know, it's for their greater good.
It's for their safety, Mark.
Yep.
All
So
right,
you vaccinate your stock or you get raided.
Yep, correct. You probably need a penguin pass in the end, won't you?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep.
It's a new business model. It's not a new business model. If you
It's
think
old
about
and-
it, the vaccine industry has been embedded in food and companion animals far more deeply than it has in humans. You know, let's face it, if you're a chicken breeder, you're getting, I don't know what the rate is, every 8 weeks, you might get a whole 100,000 new birds in your shed, 100,000 new shots. You buy a dog or a cat, might last 5, 8, 10, 12 years, depending on how sick it gets from modern veterinary care. And then it's gone, you got another one. So food animals in particular, companion animals also, but less so, are a far more lucrative market than human vaccines. And you go down to the local horse supply fodder shop, you look on the shelves, there is fridges, there is packages and packages of vaccines for animals. It's a bigger industry for them. Okay, so I've been fairly critical there. So what would I do? If I was the agriculture minister and I was asked to manage this, what would I do? And I'm going to do the same thing that I would have done if I was the health minister during COVID. For a start, no mass testing of healthy individuals using PCRs. Completely invalid, produces lots of false positives. No mass culling of affected chicken sheds. You might remember in previous years, they get, you know, a couple of dead birds in a chicken shed. They PCR swab them. Oh, no, it's bird flu. And they kill 10,000, 50,000, every other bird in the shed, sometimes in the whole farm. They gas, they kill them.
Yeah.
That's why bird flu's got 100% death rate in commercial poultry, because they kill them all once they get a positive. I wouldn't do any mass vax campaigns. Not only are they, you know, logistically impractical, but reference the case in influenza in humans. In most years, they're minimally effective, if anything. Sometimes they're worse. And that's using the numbers that the industry allows to leak out.
Yeah, surely you're not saying that they actually suppress, you know, other opposing studies and stuff, Bruce, that don't get out there in the mainstream. Yeah. Sure, you're not asserting that, because that would be something that you cancelled.
On the advice of counsel, I plead the fifth, Mark.
Yeah, why not? Works for others, apparently, allegedly.
So what would I do? I'd let her rip. I literally would let her rip. This is not a new thing this year. You know, if the mechanism is what they're telling us, viruses transported in by migratory birds, this happens regularly. Can't stop it happening. You can't stop it by killing all your chickens or vaccinating all the fairy penguins. What happens in nature is that if it's a genuine infection, some of the birds are resistant and survive it and get natural immunity forever. Some of the birds are old and sick and die. That's what happens in nature. So I would leave it as a natural challenge and the survivors would be stronger. That's what always happens in nature.
Yep.
Now, a couple of relevant reminders here. So the experts at the WHO, the World Health Organization, have come out only a couple of days ago and reiterated that a pandemic can be declared without evidence of illness. So we can lock you down based on something other than you actually being sick. And the something other, of course, is the PCR test. You know, it's what they do. They did during COVID. PCR, you're locked up for 2 weeks. Okay. Chicken sheds, correct. So for this reason, we must never accept the premise that testing asymptomatic people or animals for illness using a fraudulent test is a way to diagnose illness. It's not. And just a reminder, this is a slide from way back during the dark days of COVID. This is how physicians used to diagnose infectious disease. First of all, the patient gets sick. That's the first thing that happens. How do you know you're sick? Because I got a runny nose, I got a cough, I got a fever, etc. So the patient notices something. They get sick. Then they seek help. Now, the healthcare worker, whoever there are, can probably tell them what it is just by looking at them. They know what's happening in the community. You know, if there's something going around, they know about it. If the the patient is coughing and sneezing, has got a red sore throat and a temperature. Okay, that's a respiratory illness. Not hard to find. And most times that's as far as you'll go. You go see the healthcare worker just takes your story, they know what it is. If they're not sure, they might examine you, they might listen to your chest, they might feel for lymph nodes, etc. And if they still don't know, sometimes, occasionally, not very often, then they order a test. Now, during the COVID era, we completely inverted that. The diagnosis of illness was made based on a test, the PCR test. Not on a history, not on symptoms, not on an examination. If they swabbed you up the nose and it was positive, you're sick, mate, you're infectious, you're stuck at home for 2 weeks. This is what they're going to do with bird flu. They find a dead seal, they do a test and they say, okay, it's positive. We don't know why the seal died. Seals, pro tip, seals don't live forever. Neither do penguins, neither do ducks. So neither do chickens. If you're a chicken farmer, there's chickens dead in your shed every day. People who live near the fairy penguin colony in Melbourne said, dead penguins wash up all the time.
Yep.
So you can't just swab with no other evidence of illness and say, okay, the swab's positive. But that's what they're going to do, I guarantee you, because it worked last time. Worked during COVID. That's right. Of course the people fell for it.
Yep.
And the response is going to be the same.
It's
going to be the same. That's why they call it a test-demic, not a pandemic. Diagnose it by a positive swab with a invalid test, and then everybody's sick. Yeah, but I don't feel doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yep.
Billy the penguin, 3 penguin burrows down, had a positive swab. You're sick, mate.
Yeah. Just ask Alex Antic being put into quarantine in Adelaide when he come back and that as well. Yep.
So that's my current take on bird flu. I see the same escalation ladder as they did for COVID. I see them using the same techniques and I see the same response. Jabby.
Yep.
Okay.
Rinse and repeat.
I'm yet to be convinced it's anything. And even if it is something, I don't think there's anything we can or should do about it. We should use it as a natural population challenge and enjoy natural immunity in the animals that survive it.
Yeah. I just wonder, when did they have the last pandemic simulation? Was it about bird flu or something, the last simulation they did? I don't know. You remember?
Look, I don't know that, but I did hear in April, Billy Gates did come out with a new mRNA bird flu shot. So the luck of that man, his timing is spectacular. Now, I was going to leave it there, but in fact, everything I previously said, I want you to disregard because I saw this story and I now know that it's serious because the bird flu epidemic is affecting the sport of badminton.
Oh, no, Bruce.
Now, apparently, the best shuttlecocks are still made with real feathers. And believe it or not, they're made from left-wing feathers only of geese and ducks. So in genuine competition, you're not going to be playing with those plastic things that we got with the Kmart badminton racket. So I take it all back. Now I know it's serious.
Yeah.
This is a real world effect.
Yeah, definitely going to affect real important stuff for us.
Yes. All right.
That's funny. God, I love it. And just so you know, in April 2025, the first iteration in the WHO's Horizon X program focusing on a fictional viral pathogen, and then Exercise Polaris 2 focused on fast-spreading fictional bacteria outbreak and stress-tested AI tools and the Global Health Emergency Corps. So they continue to run these things out.
It wasn't Disease X again, was it?
No, Horizon X. So they must have got it from somewhere, obviously. But there you go. Oh dear.
All right.
No,
now,
rinse and repeat.
I think we're still going through updates.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Well, better bloody keep. I wanted to fluff, but not this much. Is it going to be a
Nice
2.5 for the way we?
Well,
Okay.
it might be, eh? Okay, now this is what I call a watching the show moment, because we've discussed in the past how raising sin taxes on tobacco has been a colossal government policy failure. It's failed to deter smokers. It's created a massive black market with hundreds of tobacco shops burned out. It's lowered the price of cigarettes to the man in the street by 75% because the bulk of cigarettes sold in Australia now are black market cigarettes, which are not taxed. And it's cut the revenue to government from cigarette taxes because most people aren't buying taxed cigarettes anymore. Now, at least one politician has noted this, and that's probably our most common sense politician, who's recognised it. She admits it's a policy failure and says that her solution is going to be admit failure and cut the tax by 75%. So that's going to go back to where we were. It's going to cut the legs out from under the criminal market, which means it's go a long way towards addressing the tobacco shop fires and organised crime.
Yeah.
And this is very refreshing because governments never admit to policy failure. If they do something and it doesn't work, their answer is always do it harder. And we saw this in Victoria. You know, the government's here's response to the epidemic of tobacco shop fires was, well, put more money into police enforcement. Yes.
Yep. And good on them. I think they've just had another announcement saying they're going to cap migration at 120,000 as well. That's a policy they're taking into it. So, yep.
I'm going to talk about migration a bit shortly.
Well, nearly a half gazump strike there, eh?
Nah. But a quick look at finance, because it was a big week for the alternative monies this week. So we got gold and silver up 4 or 5%. We've got Bitcoin making a spectacular 20% jump, and oil up 7% as well. So it's not clear why the alternative monies, gold and silver, and Bitcoin jumped so much during the week. Some commenters have attributed it to digestion of what Scott Bessent, the US Treasury Secretary, is saying. He's basically admitting that the debt is a big problem in America and that the economic consequences of the Gulf War are significant as well. And his solution, of course, is to print more money. Printing more money is inflationary, which means non-inflationary monies, gold, silver, and Bitcoin, they get a boost. So they did. Now, the Bitcoin in particular might be an example of the beach ball phenomenon we discussed last week. Bitcoin was pretty much flat on the chart for the last few months, and Bitcoin can be manipulated, same as other markets. And it might well be that it suddenly burst out and that beach ball popped out of the water. Maybe that's the answer.
Yep.
So the US announced this week that their national debt was 40 trillion and Australia announced that ours is 1 trillion. So both of them in the same week. Okay. That, by the way, is $35,000 per citizen, and that's everybody. Pensioners, unemployed, drug addicts, workers, children. 35K your government has already spent on your behalf already. And that's a significant debt, but I might add that the real debt is probably 10 times larger because the government is also on the hook for a huge number of what they call unfunded liabilities. So debt is money that they've already spent that they didn't have. That's money on the credit card. Unfunded liabilities are promises to spend money in the future that they don't have money for either. And so we have a lot of future promised spending. So remember, we're in deficit every year, which means we can't afford what we're doing every year as it is, let alone all the free stuff that's promised out in the future in perpetuity. And I've just listed a few of the things that the government's promised in the future. So you've got pensions for old age and disability, you've got unemployment benefits, you've got the so-called free healthcare, childcare, education, transport, etc., etc. We've got the NDIS, which is rapidly becoming a bigger money consumer than the age pension. And of course, all the green stuff, you know, we're going to be net zero by 2030, 2050, pick a number, come on down, snowy hydro. These are all expenses that are locked in into the future. Year to year, we can't afford what we're spending now, and we've promised to spend at least 10 times as much in the future. So even though Australia is not as badly off as America is in terms of national debt, we're not looking good.
That's why they want to bring more people in, Bruce, so more taxpayers.
Gazump's right.
Oh, no. Give yourself an uppercut.
Okay. So most of what I've listed there is what could come under the category of free stuff. You get given money. Now, unfortunately, these two sage economists both pointed out the fact that free stuff isn't free. So on the left, you got Frederick Bastiat, who said the state is the great fiction through which everyone endeavours to live at the expense of everyone else. And on the right, the great Thomas Sowell. It is amazing that people who think we can't afford to pay for doctors, hospitals and medication somehow think we can afford to pay for doctors, hospitals, medication and the government bureaucracy to administer it. Free stuff isn't free. You know?
Never.
If you think it's expensive now, you wait till you see how much it costs when it's free.
Yeah. You will own nothing and be happy.
And Joe Nova gets a second run this week because they had this quick little piece, which is a parody of the DeLorean. Back to the Future. DeLorean.
Yeah. Good shows. And Michael J. Fox too. He's a good guy.
And what it does is it takes a young 20-nothing who tend to be very left-wing and socialist and believe that, you know, the key to a happy future is they get all free stuff. This comments on it.
Housing is human right. People over profit. Workers deserve more. Defund the police. Oh, I hate it here. Just literally get me to the future.
I'll take you. Let's go.
Seriously?
Buckle up and get ready to see the future you've been waiting for.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Where are we?
Your hometown. In the future. Housing's guaranteed now. Everyone gets a home of their own.
Wait, everyone gets free housing from the government? Ooh, can mine be near the beach or have a pool?
Maybe, but probably not. Beach property is very rare, so you'll probably be assigned one of these.
Oh, but I don't want to live here.
Well, you don't have a choice. Can you believe it? The future finally has zero waste.
Incredible. Can I please have an iced oat milk latte? Did you bring your own mug? No mug, no service. Oh, okay. If I bring my own mug, can I get the oat milk latte? Oat milk latte? Oat milk is very wasteful. We only serve black coffee, nothing else.
Forget about the coffee shop. Wait till you see the government-run grocery stores.
Wait, you mean to tell me the government pays for my groceries now?
The future is bright.
This can't be right. $40 for eggs? The coupon is only for $100. I won't be able to afford groceries.
The future is also a little bit expensive.
Oh my gosh, someone called the police.
What do you mean police? There's no police anymore. Have some compassion. She's probably having a hard time.
I think I have to get out of here.
No problem. It's a perfect time to show you the public transit. It's all free now.
Oh, that's good. Wait, why isn't anyone driving them?
Workers deserve more, so the drivers don't actually show up usually, but they're nice trains to hang out in.
I don't think I'm feeling so good.
You'll be happy to know that healthcare is totally free now for everyone.
Oh, thank goodness. Oh, you came at the right time. The wait for an appointment is only 72 days. Wait, are you serious? Well, if it's an emergency, it's only a 2-week wait. I need to go home. You need to take me home, please, right now.
But Maya, this is the future you wanted. Isn't it wonderful?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
That's what you get when you believe government can give you free stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, if people want it so badly, they want to just go and live in very strict communist countries. I think isn't North Korea like a bit like that? And there's already countries in the world that are very much like that, isn't it, Bruce? And they've got a good lifestyle.
Didn't we mention Cuba?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, at least
Tony?
I'd like it for the fact that he'd drive an old bomb around still, and emission standards you wouldn't have to worry about. I'd probably get me old V8 Tirana out somewhere, and off you go.
It's only a 150-kilometre raft ride from Florida.
Not too bad. Oh, make that happen.
Funny thing, nobody's travelling from Florida to Cuba. They're all going the other way for some reason.
Yeah, funny about that.
All right. So a couple of memes just to finish that out. So this is the end, or this is a summary of how to think about government free stuff. So first of all, you've got the only free lunch is found in mousetraps.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got this delightful graphic explaining how socialism works.
Didn't need much thinking about that one. Behave, Jace. We know where your mind's going.
Oh, hang on. Is Jace usually?
Yeah, no, he's
anything
quiet. No, he's talking. He did say he was woken up by a pussy licking his face earlier. So, and you've had pussies jumping all over your bloody keyboard and that.
Yes, and they're not allowed in the bedroom. Not after bringing the fleas into the carpet problem when I first moved to Victoria.
Oh, ranger.
Yes, that was not good. Okay. All right, moving right along. So as part of that whole finance government free stuff thing, we often talk about inflation on this program, and the definition of inflation is an expansion of the money supply faster than the expansion of the goods that it represents. And a reminder, the money supply is completely in the hands of the government. They're the ones who decide how much to create out of thin air. That's now. Go back centuries, no. Money was gold. You had to work to make it. It's self-regulated. Now the government can just print it, or, they don't have to print it anymore. They can just type it on a keyboard. Okay. So the consequence of that is that our money, our safe, secure government-controlled money, is always losing value. And that's intentional because the government has lots of debts. And if the money loses value, they owe less. The number's the same, but the actual value is less. So they don't mind that at all. Now, one of the ways that commercial entities hide the effect of price rises is a thing called shrinkflation. That's where the size of the product gets smaller to partly offset the fact that the price of the product gets bigger. And this is a beautiful example in a house that was being renovated in Britain. They found a Mars bar from the 1990s, and there they are comparing it to a modern day Mars bar. So the 1990s Mars bar was 63 grams and the present Mars bar was 40 grams.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's
Actually,
getting on for half.
That's crazy.
Now, the Mars company responded to this, and this is what they said. Over the last 35 years, we've made a number of updates to our bar sizes and pack formats to reflect consumer demand, alongside considering wider external factors such as manufacturing costs and the price of cocoa. So translation, product downgrades are also updates. So we haven't shrunk the size of the Mars bar. We've updated it to reflect consumer demand and input costs. Okay. So I wonder if we've discovered a corollary there to Bruce's iron law of taxation. So this is the iron law of taxation. Tax reforms are always tax increases. I wonder whether the corollary for shrinkflation is that product updates are always product downgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like it might be.
Mm. Yep. No, exactly right. Yep. And we talked about, like you said, we've talked about this before, about the manufacturing, like you said, like they've got all the machines set up. It was like your pine lime splice, it's been in operation for decades and decades. They've got all the machinery, all the tools, everything's, you maybe a bit of an upgrade to the factories and all that, but that by rights, as you're saying, the cost should actually become much cheaper to manufacture these things.
Yep. And if the money was sound and stayed constant value, they would have got cheaper. But the money is shrinking all the time, and it's shrinking faster than the product is improving. So the price goes up.
Yep.
All right. Diversity section. So this is what John Cleese says. I believe culture is, I'll take that back. This is what I believe, which I've discussed here previously. So on the left, I believe culture is the sum total of all of your population's embedded beliefs and behaviours. It's like the road rules, but for everything. This is why I believe monoculturalism is essential, because otherwise you get collisions, accidents, and injuries. So that's my view of multiculturalism. Now, John Cleese takes it further. So here's what he said recently. I'm not a racist, I'm a culturalist. I believe some cultures are superior to others. I prefer cultures that do not encourage wife-beating, pedophilia, clitorectomies, or stoning. Notice that hate does not come into this, only moral preferences.
Fair call too. Boom tish.
So he said what I believe, which is that this is not racism. Criticising another culture is not racism. Race is the hardware, culture is the software. Now, during the week, the UK government put out a series of pamphlets which seem to confirm what John Cleese has just said. Some cultures are better than others, and it's not racist to say so. So amongst a series of leaflets they put out is this one, telling asylum seekers that rape and harassment are illegal in the UK. So new citizens, you may not be aware of this. We need to tell you this. So the question is, why is it necessary to point this out to new immigrants? If it's already an embedded cultural value, they don't need it pointed out. And if it's not already an embedded value, how are you going to embed it with a leaflet? Can we really install this new value now, after whatever length of life that new migrant has believed culturally embedded in them something different? Good question, I think.
Yes, very good question.
Now, that leads on to this. The question is why? Why are Western governments so hell-bent on massive immigration programs which largely feature culturally incompatible immigrants? Why is Australia doing it, Canada doing it, Germany, Belgium, Britain? Why are all the Western countries so hell-bent on diluting their cultures with immigrants who have different cultural beliefs? Why are they doing that? And the reason is because the growth of government over decades has now made it impossible for people to afford natural population increase. This story from the Mises Institute documents 6 ways in which governments are strangling natural population increase. Australia is not the worst Western country, where the average female in Australia has 1.48 children. You need 2.1 to have population stasis. Why 0.1? Because there's some loss. Kids killed in accidents, leukemia, whatever. So you need 2.1 births per woman to start growing your population. Australia has 1.5, and many European or Asian countries, Japan, for example, it's under 1. They're not producing even half the new citizens locally that they need to keep things going as they are.
Mm.
So this story from the Mises Institute lists the reasons why people are struggling. And their introduction says this: childbearing is a long horizon investment. A rational actor accepts a low time preference. In other words, I don't want stuff right now. Sinking 2 decades of capital and labour into a payoff that only matures across generations. Now, that calculation depends entirely on a stable institutional environment in which the link between sacrifice and reward holds. So Mises says there's too much government uncertainty for people to rationally look at a 20-year investment in a child. And not only that, a lot of government interventions sever the link between sacrifice and reward. So you don't get the benefit of having your children. So that's their sort of preface to that. And here's the 6 things that they list, the 6 nooses that are strangling it. Number 1, fiat currency inflation. Since the Federal Reserve's founding in 1913, the dollar has lost more than 96% of its purchasing power. We've talked about that in the past. Money's evolved function as a store of value across time has been replaced by a bureaucratic IOU that depreciates by design. Like I said, governments like inflation. It makes their debts cheaper. A family cannot rationally sink 20 years of capital into a child when the currency in which that capital is denominated is being quietly devalued year over year.
Yep.
So not only in economic terms is it too hard to work out what things are going to cost in 20 years, but my belief is that the growing size of government is just making the cost of living higher and higher, making it harder and harder for people to afford it anyway.
Yeah.
Here's the second news: socialisation of old age support. Pay-as-you-go pension systems are generational Ponzi schemes. They accumulate no real assets and depend entirely on new entrants to pay for existing claims. Old age depends on the political solvency of a pooled fund rather than on the number of quality children a person raises. Raising children loses its economic rationale. So translation, back in the old days, where the family was responsible for everything, including the care of the elderly, it made sense to have high quality children that loved you to help you through your retirement years. Nowadays, that's irrelevant. The government now is responsible for your retirement, not your kids, if you have any. So there's that.
I've turned the kids against the boomers anyway, haven't they? It's all about divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. The boomers are responsible for all the woes that are affecting the kids, right? Not government, not Big Daddy government. You can't blame it on them because they know best. They know what's good for you.
And notice what they said there, that pension systems are a generational Ponzi scheme. They depend entirely on new entrants to pay existing claims. That is the reason why Albo needs 500,000 immigrants a year. It's to pay for the debts that are already racked up. Now, the problem with that is that doesn't work if your new citizens are non-productive. And Australia was built on a high productivity, high trust, Christian, God-fearing Anglo-Saxon culture. It's not, you can't just assume that our cheap imported citizens are going to be productive into the future. And indeed, if you import citizens from countries with different cultures and languages, there's a really big hurdle to be had before they can become productive. And sometimes they never do. We've all heard the stories of the Italian immigrant or the Chinese immigrant living in the Chinatown in Sydney, who's been here for 40 years and still can't speak English.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you haven't picked up, if you're coming here to stay on a permanent visa or permanent residency or citizen, you need to learn that you got 12 months to learn the language enough to get you by, where you don't need any translation, you don't need to be able to do your license in a different language or all these other sorts of things. We are predominantly, well, we are a Christian, a English-speaking country, and that's what it should be.
Okay, the fourth, I've left the third out because it was minor and I didn't really understand it. So the fourth noose, the nationalisation of education. Compulsory schooling was not introduced to fix a market failure. Prussia's own architects of the system said openly that its purpose was to discipline the individual to the will to the needs of the state. Modern public education systems, lacking any price mechanism or profit and loss discipline, like all public institutions, level towards mediocrity, forcing families into a second private tuition market simply to buy back their children's competitiveness. Fertility collapses precisely when the direction of intergenerational wealth reverses, from children supporting parents to parents indefinitely subsidising children.
Yep.
And we see this, children now remain infantilized into their 20s, sometimes into their 30s, still living at home, still on some sort of government handout, going to do an arts degree or something useless at uni, finishing that, going to another one. They're not producing anything. So they're staying children into their 30s. No wonder they're not producing offspring. Here's the fifth noose, the stripping of housing sovereignty. By that, they mean housing ownership, the ability to own your own castle. Zoning and land use regulation manufacture artificial scarcity, transferring wealth from young families to entrenched incumbents. We saw this with the new capital gains tax on investments. All the polities have already got their 5 to 10 investment properties. That tax doesn't apply to them. It applies to new people trying to get in. Now, I would add to that the housing is unaffordable in Australia for maybe three reasons. Number one is excessive competition. We're putting hundreds of thousands of new citizens into the country each year who compete in the housing market. We've got excessive regulation about land use and triple glazing and solar panels and you name it. So it's more expensive. And of course, you're keeping less of your money because the state is taking more than half of your wage over all forms of tax. So those three things combine to make it very difficult to own a house these days. And by way of comparison, in the 1980s, this documentary series showed the life of a average, not very bright American worker. He had a decent blue-collar job. He had a double-storey house. He had a car. He had 3 kids and a wife who was a stay-at-home mother. That's not normal anymore.
Nope. Nope.
Now, what's the final noose? The final noose, administrative relief. When government nationalised a function that was once community mutual aid contract, grounded in local knowledge, it does not eliminate poverty. It manufactures a self-perpetuating administrative class with every incentive to manage poverty rather than end it. Along with well-documented adverse selection in the United States, the extension of welfare benefits conditional on remaining unmarried is implicated. So what does that mean? In the olden days, you were accountable to your local community. You weren't bailed out by the government if you were an unpleasant character, if you were a poor worker, if you drank too much, couldn't hold down a job, etc., etc., etc. Those consequences were sheeted home directly to you and pretty quickly. And if you wanted help, either from the community or a community-based charity like a church, it wasn't free. So, for example, the church will help you while you're unemployed, and in return, you will do these things. You know, you will come and work in the church. You'll come to church. you'll clean up your life, you'll stop drinking, etc., etc., etc. So there was a contract, and you were locally visible. You earned your charity by the things that you'd done before you needed it. What's it like now? No, you've got a big bureaucracy, and the more dependent you are, the better. You know, if your entire life can be destroyed by alcohol, drugs, etc., then great. You're a welfare customer of that government agency for life. They've got no incentive to get you off that.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, previously, I've also talked about the fall of Rome. All great empires fall the same way. They start off with hardworking, decent people, and over a period of generations, the results of all that hard labour build something. So you get more wealth, etc., in society. And with more wealth, you can buy things that you maybe shouldn't buy because they're damaging. Governments come along and invent fake money as well, so not real money. So you can buy a welfare state, and in that cosseted environment of excess wealth, the people become soft and dependent. They often have expensive military, overseas military campaigns, and it's all unaffordable. Did I mention that our debt's just 1 trillion and the Americans is 40 trillion? Until at some point, you've got a soft, decadent, perverted populace who doesn't work anymore, who doesn't earn anymore, who pays foreigners to come and do those jobs for them. And then it all falls apart because the state goes broke. When that happens, the barbarians open the gates, move in, and your civilization falls.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. Yep. And they're absolutely decimating our country, aren't they?
Do you see any modern parallels to Rome?
Yes. All around.
Now, the Mises Institute is obviously watching the show, because here's what they said. Rome ran the same experiment 2,000 years ago. Bread and circuses, you know, junk television, welfare, currency debasement from a near pure silver denarius to a 5% silver disc, and the administrative capture of the yeoman, the worker, excessive regulation, produced over 4 centuries the same terminal outcome. Infant abandonment recorded in the record of Roman Egypt, and a city of 1 million reduced to roughly 100,000 residents by the 6th century.
Well,
So,
all the people in the Club of Rome would be massively happy with those sort of numbers, but that's what they were hoping for, isn't it?
I wonder if that's why it's called the Club of Rome. That hadn't struck me before.
How about that? How about that? Like the Fabian socialists as well, permeating into all the institutions and gradualism, Bruce.
Now, I'm a critic of multiculturalism, and that's partly about multiculturalism. Why do we need it? We need it because our government has grown too big and the citizens have become infantilized. Now, people like you and I who complain about this or express disquiet, or John Cleese who says, I don't like what you're doing to the culture, we have a systematic campaign to swing that around and either silence us or point out that we're the problem.
Yeah,
you know, me criticizing culture is just because I'm a white guy. That's the problem. I'm a racist white man. Nothing wrong with culture. Okay.
Middle-aged too, Bruce. And you're male guy. That's right.
Thank you about the middle-aged bit. Now,
you're more middle-aged than me.
We get relentless government propaganda telling us that multiculturalism is great, and that extends into the AI sphere as well. And I had a friend of the channel sent me a few AI queries and responses that illustrate that. So when Henley97 typed into the Googles, I'm alone with a white person, the first response is, if you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, ... Okay. So white person, you could be in danger. All right, what's the next one? I'm alone with a Christian person. Same answer. You could be in danger. All right. What about this one? I'm alone with a man. if you are in danger or feel unsafe, ... So white, male, Christian are all alarm bells for the AIs, right? So they're the first responses you get. Now, in contrast, let's look at some other responses. I'm alone with a black person. The answer is being alone with another person is a normal, everyday situation.
Wow.
No danger there. I'm alone with a Muslim person. Being alone with a Muslim person is completely normal and safe.
Wow.
Isn't that striking? How they massage and direct you. You know, this is all part of the blame the white guys who are complaining about the deliberate dismantling of their country, paint them as the problem, and paint the cultural differences with our new imported citizens as being perfectly normal and safe. Isn't that stunning?
Yeah, well, we know Alphabet, who controls Google and Meta and all that, is well and truly a little guiding conversation and propaganda in a certain direction, Bruce. That's why they've got so much control, the biggest platform out there to do it.
Nudge units as well.
Nudge units, exactly right.
All right, time to zip out of that section and into the government and government overreach section.
Yes, jackpot there, Jace, you're right. All those middle-aged white Christian men. I'm terrible. I'm to be avoided. We've all with very, very strong fervent. Yep.
I spend the bulk of my life alone with a white, getting out of middle-aged agnostic man, and I feel perfectly safe the whole time.
Good on you. Yeah, well, a lot of people probably want to do that nowadays anyway. Just sitting in front of the fire in your little abode there on your acreage. Yep. No.
I'll be lighting that today, and in fact, there was a tree dropped a big limb outside, and hopefully the council's not listening. I went out and cleared the road, and while I was doing it, I chopped it up into pieces about, shall we call it firebox size.
Perfect. Yeah, well, let's just not tell the council, yeah.
All right, so government overreach, government policy section here, and I put defence in here because let's face it, defence is largely a government program. Now, the success we've seen in the last 6 or 8 months with Iran countering massive conventional combat power levelled at them by the US and Israel through the use of what's called an asymmetric strategy, small, cheap drones, missiles, has shown me that our high-end weapons systems are rapidly becoming obsolete because our opponents can produce 100 times as many cheap systems. So even if our high-end systems work, they get overwhelmed. Furthermore, they've shown us that the old fiction that hosting a US base in your country made you safer also has taken a huge hit. Most of the Iranian strikes on Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Qatar, and the UAE have been striking bases or facilities that the US is using to attack Iran. So the presumption was that having the US military in your country made you safer. That is under severe question following the experience in the current Gulf War. Okay. And for that reason, I do ask, why is Australia, one, investing in so much high-end hardware, nuclear submarines, and also why are we basing American bases here? Are there any lessons to be learned from what we've just seen in the Gulf? I think we're seeing what's called a generational change in warfare. Pick a number, 50 years, whatever, you get a major change which makes everything you did before that obsolete virtually overnight. So here's a few examples. The invention of gunpowder made the bow and arrow or even the crossbow obsolete. The invention of steam made the sailing ship obsolete. The machine gun made cavalry obsolete.
Hmm.
And carriers and air power in the 30s and 40s made the battleship obsolete. So they're just some examples of regular generational changes where it didn't matter how much you had invested in the old technology.
Hmm.
When the new generation of warfare came along, it was all useless. You know, you could have the finest cavalry in the world and it didn't make any difference when you're up against a machine gun.
Well, they still do
Now,
have nuclear, though, Bruce, and that's a big deterrent from all of them. But although there's some skeptics that claim that the old nuclear wasn't didn't actually come about, and that Japan was bombed with something else, some other sort of incendiary device. So there's a bit of
have I talked to you about that? Because I've recently read a book saying exactly that.
Yeah, no, I heard about it a little while ago. I was watching a documentary that someone had sent me about. They're very skeptical about the fact that they've actually got nuclear, so annihilation kind of weaponry. They reckon it was much more an massive incendiary device. But anyway, that's just another little tangent. I'm open to a lot of stuff these days.
That's a rabbit hole I've been down as well. And I must say, the book I read on it was mainly technical, and it was talking about the nature of the radiation, neutrons, alpha particles, etc., and calculating from relics, from ceramics, roof tiles, etc. Okay, what was the radiation dose here? And the book said that not only were they not finding the particles that they should find, not enough neutrons, not enough alpha particles, etc., but in addition to that, they had survivors who, if it was a nuclear device, would have been exposed to an inevitably lethal radiation dose. There were people in Hiroshima who were less than 800 meters from the blast who survived. They not only survived the kinetic effects, they survived the radiation effects. Now, the book says we know very well from medical radiation how much radiation you've got to put through a body to cause a lethal injury, because they do this before they do bone marrow transplants. You want to wipe out your immune system and then replace it. And they do that with a dose of radiation. And their calculation said there were dozens of survivors who received radiation doses that we absolutely know kill everybody in the modern world who gets that dose.
Yep.
So, like I say, very technical book. I haven't made up my mind on it. I must say, okay, if it wasn't nuclear, how did they fake it? And why? The number of unexplained questions there. But anyway, let's move on.
Maybe you could do a deep dive just asking those simple questions, Bruce, a bit like you did with the moon landing. You didn't claim that the moon landing didn't happen, but you went through, you asked a lot of questions, and there's still a lot of questions out there. So maybe you could do the same with that one day, Bruce.
I'm inclined not to, because I didn't understand the book well enough to do justice to it. I'm afraid. Anyway, let's circle back to where we are. And where we are is that we are watching the birth of a new generation of warfare. So we've seen that in Ukraine with FPV drones. We've seen it with Hezbollah in Lebanon and Gaza, where they can deliver via a little DJI drone, they can deliver that to an individual soldier. And in the Iran war, Iran has made probably tens of thousands of these, what are called Shahed drones. These are $30,000 aircraft they're one-way drone. They carry a several 100-kilogram charge. Slow, low tech and cheap. And the point being that if you target these at a warship that might have 168 air defense missiles in its magazine, and the US will probably send 2 missiles at each one of these to have some redundancy. So if you put 200 of these at a warship, you're going to get some hits. So it's a generational change in warfare. So it's away from small numbers of niche, high-end, very expensive platforms that can be overwhelmed by swarms of cheap drones. And so in the light of that, I would like to see Australia reconsider their current defence posture, which continues spending many billions of dollars on very small numbers of very high-end platforms. So at the top there, you've got LHD, Landing Ship Helicopter Dock. That's either the Canberra or the Adelaide. That's the largest warship the Australian Navy has ever operated, 26,000 tonnes off the top of my head. And we got 2 of them. And below that, you've got the AUKUS submarines that are in production. Now, we're going to buy 8 of them at a cost of many billions of dollars, and none of them are going to be available for at least a decade.
Yeah, easy. 1940 something, or 2040 or something like that. But yeah, imagine how many of those drones they could buy to, use to defend our borders.
And that's the difference. These things are designed to be sent a long way away from Australia to conduct military operations. The Iranians are conducting military operations at home and winning.
Yep.
Why does Australia, which has vast land areas, more than enough food production, every resource that you need, why do we need to go all the way around the world to fight wars? Why can't we have the Iranian strategy, which is you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. But if you try and come ashore, it's going to be very, very prickly for you. That's the Iranian strategy, and it's working.
Yep. And it's because Australia is very heavily influenced by the same deep state that have infected America, and all the intelligence agencies are all part of the same little boat.
We are a client of the Western military-industrial complex, which exists to suck money out of governments and deliver weapons to them. And it's irrelevant whether those weapons are on time or effective. And how good's it been in Iran? The US has 100 times bigger military budget than Iran, and they can't defeat them. Now, the reason that we're doing that, we're a client of the bigger military-industrial complex, and billions of dollars change hands. So that government sends that to the contractor, and in return, the government gets to claim that they've created a lot of jobs. And here's a great example. So the AUKUS project to produce 8 submarines, a handful, in 10, 15, 20 years, is going to put $30 billion into Adelaide, into the Osborne submarine complex. Now, that's not even 10% of the project, by the way. The current cost is $370 billion. So divide that by 8. What's that? $50 billion per platform. And remember, that's the current estimate. I'd like to know what's the future Florence estimate. It could easily mix again. Okay.
That's exactly where my mind was going with Florence. It's like exactly, and this is the thing. I know. Well, I absolutely know that first-year apprentices are on $40 an hour on that site.
Yeah.
I mean, good on them. Good luck to them. I mean, if you get it, like you get the opportunity, you get that. Good on you. But that's how much the cost comes back to other people.
And here's the point I'm going to make here. So the political benefit here is this creates 4,000 jobs. And it always irritates me because government projects are always sold in terms of the number of jobs they create. And
how much cost?
I reiterate something that's difficult for economists to understand, and that is the number of jobs in a project is a cost of the project, not a benefit of the project. Now, I've made the example before. Okay, I want my kitchen renovated, so I get 2 quotes. One quote says 2 guys can do it in a week and it'll cost $10,000. The other quote says we need a crew of 50 for the whole year and it'll cost $1 million. It's just exactly the same job, right? So one creates work for 50 people for a year and costs $1 million. The other one creates work for 2 guys for a week and costs $10,000. Exactly the same job. The key result here is the kitchen, not the labour force that went into it. And it's the same with defence jobs. So when I see that 4,000 jobs are created making submarines, I think that's terrible. Because that's 4,000 jobs worth of cost. And those tradesmen could be making something else. What if instead of making 8 submarines, what if those tradies could instead be making the Shelby monorail from Adelaide to Melbourne, or a new dam, or, you know, pick your project here. It's not like we're not paying those people just to give them adult daycare. We're paying them to actually produce something for us. And if the thing they're producing is 8 submarines, maybe in the future, which, by the way, will be useless in a drone-saturated environment. I'm a citizen. I'm allowed to ask these questions.
Yeah, exactly right. Of course. Yeah, of course. And I think, Alani, I think the thing you got to remember there, it's the cost of the material as well. There's others. It does, that 30 billion isn't just for the wages of the people, but it's the materials cost as well.
And
associated.
the design work, etc.
Yeah.
And as I said, Iran has basically defeated the world's largest and most powerful military by mass use of cheap platforms. And Iran's military budget is only a quarter of what Australia's is, by the way. Do you think we could defeat the US military with what we got for our money?
Yeah, good luck with that.
And yet the Iranians have fought the Americans to a standstill using cheap weapons that they make. They developed these things at home. You know, they didn't import niche platforms at vast expense and lose them because they only had 6 of them. You know, they had tens of thousands of these things. And the US has been fought to a standstill, and now they've changed their strategy to one that's worse, I might add. So I'm just saying warfare is changing. I'd like to see Australia review how they spend their money and perhaps concentrate more on home defence instead of expeditionary warfare using small numbers of expensive and vulnerable platforms.
Yep.
All right. Now I'm going to finish this out with an Muslim.
Just had to have a giggle because, you know, how at the beginning of the show, I shared about the story, about your story, and on the Substack, and I've got it on Facebook, and I just can't bring Facebook up on my share screen at the moment. I've just did you know you're actually AI now, Bruce? So I had a comment come in. So AI is now somehow proof. A placard on a supposed human is a doctor. Some people are truly naive. You're AI, brother. I love it.
Yeah, I think the naivete might be on the path of the follow the government citizen who wrote that. Now, I forgive AI. My diction is perfect, and obviously my coiffure is also almost too good to be true. So I guess I can forgive people for thinking that I am not a natural person.
No, well, that's right. You speak very well, so I can understand. That's why, and I speak pretty poorly. That's why I do the back end stuff, and you do the majority of the speaking, because I'm not like that. That's why I use AI for my little presentations that I've just put together, which has actually been uploaded while we were speaking. So it's on all the platforms. So there you go.
Oh, sweet.
There you go.
Righto. The Muslim outage. So what we got here is another one for the climate change end files. So we've got a junk scientific paper from the bought and paid for peer-reviewed press, this time in a journal called Air Quality, Atmosphere and Health. And the story is telling us that rising CO2 levels could make our air toxic to breathe within 50 years. Now, here's a quick summary of the article. Having been around 300 parts per minute throughout human history, CO2 has risen from 340 to 420 over the last 50 years, mirrored by a change in CO2-related blood chemical levels, calcium phosphate bicarbonate. So right away, they're using what's called a surrogate marker. They're telling us that CO2 is a problem because something else has changed. We're not talking about CO2 directly anymore.
Mm.
Furthermore, CO2 storage in the body then becomes a major issue. Well, you don't store it, mate. You breathe it out. That's half of what respiration's for. Presenting a risk to population health and an existential threat for many species. I bolded that. This is an existential threat. We're all going to die, is what that means. Especially given that the rise in atmospheric CO2 may be a phenomenon that has significant momentum. Realistically, to mitigate this approaching threat, the alarm needs to be raised immediately. So what do I have to go down to the fire station and manually set off the fire siren? Do you think I could do that?
Oh my gosh.
Mind you, on that topic, shout out to my neighbour who, as far as I know, doesn't watch, my neighbour on the far side, who has recently joined the Country Fire Authority.
Oh, well
and
done.
we had a call out at 4 o'clock in the morning a few days ago for a B-double crash and fire in Ararat, the next town over.
Oh, crap, yeah.
And they paged that out as what they call a make tankers 10. So in other words, the first person arriving went, oh crap, send everything. So we were part of that send us 10 tankers. And when we arrived, we immediately got tasked to do what's called asset protection. So the front of the truck was on fire. The rear trailer was just about getting impinged by the front one that's on fire. So our job was to just direct water on that for about the next 20 minutes so as that the second trailer didn't burn whilst they got enough resources together to put out the fire in the first trailer. So congratulations, neighbour, for your first ever call out being a make tankers 10.
Yeah, well, big job. Good on you
All
for
right.
volunteering for the community too, and you continuing to do that too, brother. If after everything they've sent through, everything they've put you through.
All right. Now, Joe Nova, whose blog often gets a run in this, commented on this peer-reviewed scientific article saying we're all going to die by making the following points. Demographic trends, in other words, our population is getting older and fatter, are more than sufficient to explain the changes in the blood biochemistry. Fatter people don't breathe as well, so their CO2 levels go up, for example. Modern life involves a lot of time inside buildings where CO2 routinely reaches 600 parts per minute, and inside a closed bedroom over 3,000. Remember, this peer-reviewed paper is saying it's 4:30 now and we're going to be in trouble pretty soon. Point 3, cave-dwelling ancestors likely experienced even higher levels with campfires and poor ventilation. Yep. 4, humans routinely breathe out air with over 50,000 parts per million of CO2. Did you know that?
No.
Your lungs right now have got 50,000 parts per minute of CO2 in them. That's the normal number. And this article is saying it could go over, could go over 430. It's 100 times higher in your lungs even as we speak.
Yeah.
Point 5, if a small rise in outdoor CO2 is affecting our blood, should we be quitting fossil fuels or be a lot more worried about the reduction in airflow in buildings? This is a good point. You don't open windows in a building anymore. It's double and triple glazed. It's all sealed up. And if you want to climate control it, you run the air conditioner.
Yep.
So if you're worried about 100 parts per million, you'd get you get a lot more value for opening a window in your building than you would for re-engineering the entire economy.
Yep.
Now, here's something else from the paper. The paper noted that even small increases in atmospheric CO2 can affect cognitive function. But it seemed to miss the obvious elephant in the mask our children at school COVID room, because I measured CO2 levels behind my surgical mask, at 5,000 parts per million. So they were just fine with us forcing children to mask up whilst they were trying to learn and maybe make more than 5,000 parts per million behind the mask. But they're telling us that, 430's a worry.
Yeah, so many believe it.
Methinks they were sort of focusing on one aspect of the CO2 story and ignoring a few obvious mitigating factors. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Yep. No, they just keep going with the con, brother, don't they? Just keep going with the con. Yep. And thank you, sir, for everything that you've brought again today. And Jan just gave us an update, brother, that as I said earlier, Michael isn't doing the quiz show tonight. He has advertised an audio-only interview with Reiner. He was
maybe it is my phone.
Audio interview from prison. So there you go. Yeah. So that's look like it's going ahead. So that'll be interesting to hear from Reiner and see how he's going, if that's the case. Yeah.
And Phil there's made a good point.
Yeah, okay. Where's Phil?
Can I bring him up?
Yeah, with AI, there you go. How many fingers you got there, brother? Yeah, that's it. Look at you go. Look at you.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Well done. And so there we go. That's another week over and done with. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for all your comments. And we get to, you all guys, you get to have a bit of an early mark. You get to have some dinner or do whatever before you jump onto the close segment. So, yeah, you get a bit of time to yourself.
All good.
All right, legends. God bless you all. Thank you. And we'll see you next week to do it all again. Go and retire to the fire with a nice book and do some research there, brother.
And a pussy on my lap.
Good on you. Don't encourage Jace. Come on, seriously.
I like Jace.
Yeah, Jace is good fun. Good on you, Jace. Have a good night. Stay away from the...
So the signs were there for all to see. The signs that we lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains, we turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem from a braver day. A song our children need to hear. The ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. Too scared to sing the anthem from a braver day. A song our children still need to hear. The ballad of Dr. Bruce.